Welcome to What's Going On, the weekly podcast and videocast of First United Methodist Church in Yankton, South Dakota. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of What's Going On. I'm Pastor Katie of First United Methodist Church here in Yankton, South Dakota, and I'm glad that you have joined us today. Today, I have another special guest with me. I do find that I have more fun when I have someone here to visit with, and I know that for many of you, you've enjoyed getting to meet some of the people of our church and those who are connected to our church in one way or the other. And so today, I have with me Dr. Dan Johnson. And so Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Well, it's a pleasure to be asked to be here, so thank you.
So Dan is here. He is one of the lay leaders of our church and is also a member of our COVID task force. And so he's going to visit today about some of the roles that he plays in the life of the church. But first, I thought it would just be interesting to get to know you a little bit more because even I haven't gotten to know you very well. And so Dan, how long have you been a member here at our church?
Well, I was in medical school over in Vermilion, and that's where I met my future wife, Mary Milroy, and we actually got married in this church, even though we weren't really, I guess we sort of became members so we could get married here, but we got married the night before we graduated from med school. So it was big. We had everybody together for the wedding, and then the next morning we sort of drug ourselves out of bed and went over and got our medical school graduation done. So that, and Eric Grenager was the minister here at that time. And so then we left South Dakota for a while to do training in California, and then came back. So since I guess I've had something to do with this church with some hiatus between since 1981. So
that's a good amount of time.
Yeah.
And so so you were in Vermilion, but you joined the church here. Was there something about this church that you two just really gravitated toward, or?
Well, I'm from a little town in western South Dakota, from Edgemont, and Edgemont was small enough that we had kind of a unified church between the Congregationalists and the Methodists. And so I had come up under that UIF, and Mary had, in Aberdeen, had been going to a Methodist church. And so we have always just sort of been drawn towards this flavor of Protestantism, I guess, whatever. So yeah, I'm not sure. Can't say exactly why we didn't pick the church in Vermilion, but somehow we ended up over here, and we're happy that we did.
Well, I'm happy that you did as well. And how did you get roped into becoming one of our lay leaders? So we have 3 lay leaders in this church, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think Bob Thuy and Chad Hermanson and then myself. And it's just, I've been on a lot of committees in the church and hadn't been on a lay leader before. So it's sort of like the revolving door of committees.
Well, and as a lay leader, part of what you do is the 3 of you split kind of sitting in on different committees. So the lay leaders, if a church has one lay leader, they're kind of expected to be at all the meetings as the pastor is, but between the 3 of you, you kind of cover different committees to know what's going on in the church, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit informal. Like sometimes there may all 3 of us be at a particular meeting, but we try to sort of tag team it so that there's at least one of us at all of the committees that we should sit upon. I have to admit, I didn't exactly know that was part of the job description, but it's working out well to have 3, because it does make it so it's not so onerous on any one individual. And I can see the point of it, because you do need to be connected with the many facets of what's going on. I know Bob well. We've done some trips together. We were down in Houston after the flood down there, and I've served with Chad before on the. We were kind of co-chairs of the Pastor Parish Relations Committee, and that worked out really well. And so it's kind of like we all are good friends, and works. We can communicate well, and it works out fine.
Yeah, and the lay leader role is really an interesting role within the church because different churches sort of approach it differently, but it is a really important role because, you know, if the lay leader is, they would have the same sort of pulse on what's happening in the life of the church as the pastor does because they're seeing what the committees are doing, they're seeing where the discussions and the leadership that are having, and they're an important role for me as the pastor, especially as a new pastor. I rely on my lay leaders to kind of give me a sense of what's going on, especially in this transition because I've still yet to meet so many people or have a real connection with so many people yet because of where we are in the world right now.
Yeah, my heart goes out to you because I can't imagine how hard it is to come into an organization with many people and yet have to do it at a bit of a distance. So it'll just be nice when we can all be together all the time again.
Yeah, I am definitely looking forward to you know, having more opportunities for times for fellowship and things like that. I think that's been the biggest challenge is you know, normally I would love to sit down and drink coffee with people and just visit and chat and you know that those are the things that are hardest to do right now. And so you know, but we've had some really fun things that have happened. I would say that our costume parade was a really fun time to get to see families and you know, just kind of get out of the church building but still have, you know, church fellowship in that way, and it was just fun. And so you know, I like things like that. We've been able to start to find ways to do things like that within the church because it's a tough thing, as you said. You know, it's been really hard to sort of shift and adapt to what we're doing, but we're building momentum right now. And you know, our children and youth ministries are up and going, and our kids are working on the Christmas program already. We're doing a virtual Christmas program this year, and the kids are each video recording their parts, and it's going to get all edited together, not by me, please. But, you know, Tiffany's been really hard at work on getting that stuff. It takes so much planning to do something in that way, but it's been really fun to see that. It's been fun to see just people really still participating, even if they're from home or from a distance in some ways, but still offering what they have, which I think is really cool. But yeah, I do look forward to the day when I can sit across, you know, sit on a couch with someone and just visit, and I think that'll be really, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. I guess if you're looking for the silver lining in this cloud, it is that it's really made everybody up their game as far as being able to do Zoom meetings and just take advantage of the technology that's available. It's certainly, you know, I hope when things return to normal that, I mean, I don't mind going to some meetings, but Zoom meetings can be really efficient too. And
right.
And continuing to tap into that, I think will make it so that, you know, people would maybe be more willing to serve on committees and such. Although the flip side of that is that, and I'm sure you can speak to this as well, that one of the things that being in a church family is great, and that's part of the reason people come to church. But if you take it to the next level, instead of just coming to church on Sunday, and you start joining in to some of the leadership, the committees, maybe the missions trips or whatever, it just makes it so that it enriches the experience so much more. And you do just feel a community of believers that it's well worth the time spent on these committees, just because you feel so much more connected to your family here at First United Methodist Church.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, you know, when we can kind of see that as a sort of a trajectory of discipleship, where you start and it's really about, you know, what the church can help the church feed your soul and to help you grow in your relationship, and that it's really, you know, and that we work really hard to continue to offer that. But the next real step in discipleship is beginning to give back, right? To give of yourself, to be in service, and to be in service with people. And I think that's, you know, the difficult challenge right now is to maintain the connections and to maintain our connection to the church as far as what we're able to give and what we're able to do, because that is a vital part of it. And our structures and stuff are changing a little bit, where you know, we have one pastor now, and I just can't do all of it. And so, you know, I do require people to offer up whatever talents and gifts and services that they have for the sake of the mission.
Sure.
And I think that is, you know, always going to be a challenge before us, that it's not just about, church isn't just about watching what's happening, but giving back and participating in the life of the church and in the mission of the church. And I want to say that it is happening, and I'm excited about the things that are cropping up, because new opportunities for service are happening now. I just had someone who, you know, is willing to video record the people who want to offer music. And right now, music is a big thing that we can have, you know, if whatever musical ability you have, you know, we are looking for people to just put something on video and send it to us, because again, part of is that connection, to see other people's faces. I don't think people necessarily want to see my face all the time. I think people want to see each other and feel connected to each other. And so I think that is an important piece of it. And it's doable and it's happening, but I think it could happen even more. So, so yeah, I'm excited. I think there's a lot of good things going and happening. And I think we are starting to kind of find our footing in how to be the church in this time and in this space. And I think God is doing mighty things. And so I'm excited about that. You know, as difficult as it is to kind of navigate, I think good things come from challenges. And so that's the kind of perspective that I'm choosing to take for all of this. So part of the reason that I wanted you to come on today is you are the lay leader, but you're also part of the COVID task force. And so I thought maybe I'd have you share a little bit about you know, kind of the makeup of the task force and some of the discussions that we've had. I'm a part of it as well, and how we got to where we are, and why what we're doing is working so well.
Yeah, so the COVID task force that we have is currently comprised of 3 physicians, myself, Randy Heisinger, and Tim Irwin. Randy's is a retired pediatrician, and Tim is a cardiologist. Tim's involved on a daily basis taking care of very sick people. And as you may know, some of the people that get real sick with COVID often have cardiac issues going on in conjunction with other things. So Tim is really good to have on the committee, because he's our real-time input. He knows what's going on in the ICU at Sacred Heart Hospital here in our own community,
right.
You know, on a daily basis. Randy has taken care of many viral infections, having a pediatric population. So his input's always good. Sharon, or Susan rather, is our nurse and our parish nurse. And so she really has her fingers on the pulse of our church family and what's going on with individuals. We have Craig Sherman, who kind of is our physical plant guy. He knows a lot of the things about our ventilation systems, our furnaces, our space. So he's really a great guy to have involved, our kind of facilities maintenance person. And then of course, your input as the leader of us all is really helpful as well. And I don't,
And
oh, and
Steve, yeah.
Steve Payatala, as the head of the church council is really, his input is good because then he kind of helps as the leader also kind of helps disseminate information and knows what's going on too.
Right, and it was the church council that formed this task force. It came out of kind of understanding that our church council is quite a large group and not necessarily the best positioned to help kind of monitor and make some decisions. And so the church council created the task force saying, and especially looking at our medical, who do we have medically in the church that can really understand this and really help to make sense of what we can do and the measures that we can take to be the church and to be the church without putting people in significant harm's way, which is not something we'd ever desire to do. And so the task force was created kind of in August. And then we've been meeting periodically to, one, create the phases document that we have on our website, and then to continue to monitor what's happening, how our guidelines are working or not working, what we need to continue to look at and adapt as we move. And it's been a real blessing to me to have such great input and insight because I don't have a medical background. Like my background is in running the church and I have that understanding, but to have people who can really speak to what's happening right here in Yankton, it's just invaluable, and it's such a blessing to our church.
Yeah, and it's such foreign territory for most people to deal with an epidemic, or in this case, a pandemic. This is actually the third one I've been involved with. When Mary and I were interns in Oakland, California in 1981-82, we started to see the first cases of largely the gay population with some very unusual pulmonary infections and weird sarcomas and stuff. And we were seeing the very beginning of the AIDS epidemic, and we didn't even know what it was. They didn't even know what the virus was or anything. We just started to see these emerging, very rare conditions happen. And so, and at the time that started, I mean, we had very lax protocols for dealing with body fluids. In the emergency room, there'd be blood everywhere sometimes, and gunshot wounds and starting IVs and stuff, and people just weren't careful about it. Some of it's unavoidable, but as we learned more and more about it, we learned what we needed to do to be safe. And then it just became second nature, and you could do fairly straightforward, simple things that help protect yourself so you didn't get a deadly viral infection. I was in Haiti one time when there was a cholera epidemic, and there with cholera, people can come in and be dead in 8 hours. It's a horrible, horrible disease. And at that time, I saw people from World Health Organization that were down there helping try to get that under control. And I've never seen people as careful about technique and limiting their exposure, so that the common denominator is that there's very straightforward, predictable things you can do to protect yourself and protect other people during these times of epidemic disease transmission. But you got to do the things in order to protect yourself and protect others. And now what's happened with this pandemic, the coronavirus, is that initially we didn't really know for sure what to do. I mean, it was pretty acceptable to us all to wash our hands because our mothers have been telling us that forever. But the whole notion of masks and things, that was a little odd.
Well, and I remember that took a while for that to really kind of become norm. I remember early on, it was sanitizer was, you couldn't find it anywhere. people just didn't know.
Right.
And so it was just kind of, you felt like you were sort of doing a shot in the dark as far as what's going to be the best. So it made sense to kind of be shut down until we had some sense
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
how is this getting transmitted?
And part of that was that we as a nation were caught a little flat-footed because we didn't have much personal protective equipment, and we couldn't afford to have the general public diverting that when the medical people needed it. So
Right.
if there would have been lots of it, we probably would have started to use the masks a little bit more. But now it's, an example is just the things that we're doing in our own church. It's it's no longer debatable that social distancing is really important. And we kind of arbitrarily have picked 6 feet because a lot of the large particles that happen when a person is sneezing, coughing, pronouncing consonants, singing, things like that, a lot of those particles kind of drop to the floor within about 6 feet. But not all particles do. The aerosolized particles are much smaller and they can remain airborne. And it became really obvious that that outdoors there's so much ventilation, so much airflow, the viral particles on floating around on whatever comes out of people is diluted so much that your chances of contracting the virus into your body in enough numbers to cause disease would be very unusual unless outside you're really, really close together. So we knew social distancing, where the masking was really important, because then it really eliminates a huge number of the particles that come out of our mouth and nose. So that was obviously a good thing to do, but it took a while to get that. But as a lay leader, I heard comments from some of the congregation that when we were trying to decide what to do, well, maybe we should just do one service with masks and one service without masks. And I thought, that would not be a good idea to do that. But it underscored kind of people's still just not totally understanding how this virus spread itself, because it's pretty predictable and we know a lot more about it now. So I think in our own church, we're doing really good things. The distancing, the mandatory mask. We're trying to make sure people understand that it's really important to cover the nose and the mouth, because
Right.
stuff comes out of the nose too. So,
right, it's both. And some, one of the things I like is there's a lot of masks that have these little pieces that you can mold around your nose as well, to help it be a little bit better seal, which is, I like those.
We're kind of spoiled, in surgery and stuff. We have really, really good stuff that molds across the bridge of your nose. Some of them even have adhesives, so you really seal that up. So there are good masks and not so good masks, but any mask is better than no mask. And right. I think as a congregation, we're doing really well with that. We're keeping tabs on who's coming, so that should we have a transmission that we trace back to the church, we can kind of figure out who they might have been sitting by, who would have been at greater risk. But so the things, if people will just follow what our guidelines are that the COVID task force has developed, I think there's a really good chance that that getting a viral transmission while people are in our sanctuary, in our church, is going to be highly unlikely. Not impossible, right, but highly unlikely. And the thing about not getting this virus is that every one of these things we do, be it the social distancing, masking, washing our hands, they all have a cumulative good benefit that if you eliminate any one of them, you're not going to be as protected. But if we do all of these good practices, then we are really taking care of ourselves, but almost more importantly, we're taking care of our families, we're taking care of our grandparents, we're taking care of all of our other church family. So the mask should be seen as a sign that I care for you. I'm thinking of you. Yeah. It's not, somehow it's gotten politicized. It's just common sense. In South Dakota, we pride ourselves in common sense, and masks are common sense at this point.
Yeah, I think it goes back to, the greatest commandments that Jesus gave us, which is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And,
Exactly.
and just as we wouldn't want someone who's sick to come and cough or sneeze on us, even if it's a cold or something, to be able to extend that to other people. And part of it is, we can be mildly symptomatic or not symptomatic. And so, we just don't know. And so how do we show our love? And simple precautions can really go a long way.
Yeah. That's really important, because I didn't mention that. If you feel sick, or if you've been around somebody who's sick, even if you're asymptomatic, your threshold for staying home and watching the online service or listening to the radio rebroadcast should be very low. I mean, you do not want to come and run the risk of being the super spreader. I mean, that would be, and there are people that do that, and so we don't want to do that.
Right. Well, and that's, I've been very committed in trying to make sure that we have the technology available, so that, if you are quarantined, if you have someone in your household that contracted it, or you yourself have gotten it, which with the way that things are, it's very likely that people will. We want to still make sure that church is accessible to you as possible. So, we will continue to be live streaming. We finally worked out our audio issues this week, so yay. When we had our Charge conference, we live streamed that, so that and it's recorded on our YouTube so that people can see that. When we have our meetings, we always now have the option for you to join the meeting via Zoom, and we're working on, as we continue to do that, we find like, oh, this room is too echoey for that. Let's work on another space. And so we're working really hard to make that always be a viable option, because we want to make sure that people can always be connected to the life of the church, whether they are here in person or whether they are at home joining us via technology. I want that to be something that people can really feel like that's a real option for them, because I think it's important. If they don't have the access to it and they stay home and feel disconnected, I don't think we're doing our job as the church either. So
right,
we're trying to work really hard with that, and it's a process for sure, but that's one of the commitments that I have, is that while we're in this space, that and I think just moving forward, I think of, one of the challenges that we kind of classically had as the church is, maybe families who have sporting events that are on Sunday. Well, now, if that happens, they can watch church and they can still participate and, have it on their phone, and they can, so like we're creating more opportunity for people to engage in worship and for people to engage in the life of the church. And so I'm really excited about that reality that will continue to move forward as well. I think it's a good thing. So, because it used to be that if you weren't there, then you just missed out, and that doesn't have to be the case anymore.
No, and really, if we know what we need to do now, and if we just don't give up, don't fatigue. We really know what the playbook is now to get through this, and if we just stay the course and do these simple things that really aren't that hard to do once you just get used to it. We just need to get through the winter and be extra vigilant when we all start coming indoors as the weather gets colder. And then come, spring, I think there's going to become fairly wide availability of a vaccine, and then that's going to really help out a great deal. But we have some months ahead of us. Yeah, the end isn't quite in sight yet, but it's getting closer and closer. And there's never been in developing vaccines, they're running about a half dozen of them simultaneously towards the finish line now with clinical trials, and so it's just amazing to see all of the efforts going in by the scientists and the folks that develop vaccines. It's going to give us a vaccine faster than we've ever brought one to the general population before. Initially it'll probably go to healthcare workers, the people that are taking care of the sickest, but they're already ramping up production on whichever ones emerges the best. They're going to have the factories and the processes in place to be able to make that very, very quickly. And so if we just stay the course, we're going to get through this. And, as God has helped us get through worse things than this. We just have to just believe and have faith and look after one another, and we'll be fine.
Well, and at the end of the day, we are the church, and the church is open, and the church is doing good in the community and in the world, and there's a lot of opportunity for us to be meeting needs right now. And so, it's a different season, but it is yet a season that God is active and that God is moving. We won't stop being the church, no matter, whether we're online. I mean, part of the reason that we have what we have in place is to be as open and as available as we can be, and to try to be as consistent in that as we can be. And so, that's our hope. But at the end of the day, as long as we are still committed to each other and still committed to God, we will be the church, and the church will survive this because God is here and God is active and that God is moving. That's part of the reason I always talk about the God moments, is that we need to be paying attention to that, because God is doing something big. And I think that this is a season that is a difficult one, but it's a season that is going to bear fruit in the future. And I for one am excited to see what that looks like. So
me too.
Well, Dan, I am so glad that you joined me today for our episode of What's Going On. Would you mind if I closed us in prayer?
No, thank you.
All right, let's pray. Dear God, I thank you for this day, and I thank you for your servants like Dan, who are in this church, who have done the rounds of all of the different leadership committees, and who have given of their time to serve your people. And so, God, I ask your blessing upon Dan and his wife and his family. And I also just pray for all those that we have been talking about today. We want to pray for those who are our medical workers, who are on the front lines, who are doing such good work and caring for our population here and around the world. And God, we pray for our church family as we continue to adjust to this reality right now, and the ways that we can be the church right now, and the ways that we can meet people's needs, and the ways that we can reach out to one another in love. So God, help us to continue to find our ways to give back as we are the church. And so God, I thank you for your faithfulness in all of this, and for the ways in which you are preparing the ground for the fruit that you will bear in the future. God, we know that through all of this, that you are good and you are active and you are faithful. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of What's Going On. We'd love to have you join us for worship on Sundays at 8:30 or 11, either in person in our sanctuary with our safety protocols in place, or online on our website at www.firstumcyankton.org.